I'd like to bring in now Craig Fahle to our discussion from the Craig Fahle Show on WDET. Thanks so much for joining us, Craig. We appreciate it here at the Big
My
Table.
pleasure.
This has been a big discussion, obviously, on your show.
Mm-hmm.
I know that we listen all the time to your show.
Thank you.
And a lot of people have been calling in and talking about this has been a divisive process, and it's been raw for a lot of Detroiters and people in the region. What kind of healing do you think has to be done on a personal level for people to get behind this deal and to have faith that the city is going to be able to carry out certain things to get those services back going that people really need to exist day to day in Detroit?
I'm not sure anything can be done other than what you just suggested, improving those services. Until people see an improvement in their quality of life in the city, they aren't necessarily going to buy into this fully. It's going to take something like getting the lights on, something that Stephen has been talking about, obviously, for months in his columns, on a regular basis, not having those problems, better police response. This is what it's going to take for people to think that this is working, because most people don't really see the day-to-day effects of having a big budget deficit, because the quality of life has been getting steadily worse over the last couple of decades, so it's been a slow and steady decline. So until they actually see something changing somewhat rapidly in a better direction, they're not going to buy into it.
Well, so what kind of time frame are we looking at here? Because people say, all right, well, now we've got something in place. What can we expect?
You need big wins early, but I mean, I think we also have to have some realistic expectations. There's the management problems in the city are humongous. Just talking about the lights. The reason the lights aren't on is because they can't turn them on. It's not a matter of sending somebody out there to fix a bulb or something. I mean, the system doesn't function. And so if you're going to do something different, you're talking about a big picture solution that's got to have some money in it to refinance that system and get the lights working. So I don't think we're talking about an instant turnaround. People are going to have to be somewhat patient.
No, but they can get some early wins, and that's what the governor was talking about yesterday. Things are so bad that improvement is not going to be such a hard challenge. And he talked about going in there and getting some early scores, some quick wins to show the citizens that this is a good path. And if you just compare it to what's happened at the school district and all the contention and all the bitterness when that was taken over. And now Roy Roberts is in place, and they're improving the looks of the schools and the performance of the schools. And you don't hear a whole lot of people complaining about that anymore. If they make some early quick fixes, I think they get to
But the fixes they have to make right now are the fixes that nobody's going to see. When you start talking about swapping out debt, getting better rates on things like long-term debt, people don't see the benefit of that right away. It's hugely important to get that stuff done, though. I mean, because you're repairing the foundation of the house right now. That's not the kind of improvement. People like new kitchens, right? But when your basement's leaking, that's the money you have to spend right now.
Yeah. And how hard will it be under this arrangement? You heard Ken describe the arrangement. It sounds like you've got two separate governments at work. It's like a shadow government in place. And who's going to really have control of the department heads? Who's going to be able to say, hey, get out there and turn that street light back on, tear that house, pick up that garbage?
The thing that most Detroiters are going to be concerned with, everyone knows what those issues are. You got to get crime under control. I think that's an easy fix. You got to get more cops on the streets. You maybe bring in the state police to fix that. You've got to get buses running on time. People cannot get to work in the city right now because DDOT doesn't function. You got to make DDOT work in the short term and pretty quickly get a regional system in place that does it.
And that's where the state comes in on this question. They made some promises to the city that said, look, in exchange for your cooperation on this deal, we have to do some things in the legislature. That does include a regional bus system. They said that they're going to work on that. They said that they're going to help the city refinance its debt. So they're going to have to do that pretty quickly. And there are a number of other things they could do, helping the city collect its income tax, having businesses collect Detroit income tax for residents of Detroit who work elsewhere. That's important stuff that they need to get done.
$155 million right there.
That's a ton. And so the legislature needs to quickly, live up to their end of the bargain if they want to get people's trust in this.
Right. Craig, you wrote an essay that I really enjoyed, and you can actually read it on MiWeek.org. We have a link to it there. And you said, real healing only occurs when the afflicted recognizes the extent of the problem and finally pledges to do something about it. Do you believe that that is finally happening?
Well, I think it certainly happened at the city council the other day. I don't think they had any choice but to vote for it. But this was almost an intervention. I hate to sort of liken it to a 12-step program here, but it's kind of in that situation. when people finally come together and say you can't keep doing things the way that you're doing them. And there was a recognition that the system that we have right now, the status quo, is completely and fundamentally broken. And all the arguing in the world doesn't solve the problem.
And yet, Craig, they didn't necessarily wipe away the status quo. And my worry about this hybrid situation is that you're going to see more of what we've seen, more fighting, more bickering instead of action. In this case, the citizens of Detroit who need their services improved, need their communities fixed, might have been better off with an emergency manager than with this hybrid situation. A dictator is often in these situations far more efficient than the democratic process.
Yeah, see, I really think that there's an advantage to having kept council and mayor more in the picture. You're going to get more buy-in from citizens in the short term on that, but I do agree that an emergency manager would have had more powers, I think, to deal with the debt, which is the biggest problem, and a lot of this agreement doesn't address that stuff.
And let me ask you this: is bankruptcy off the table, or this is still an option? Because I think people think the consent agreement. Oh, we signed this agreement, and we're kind of in the clear here.
Well, this is a management solution, and bankruptcy is for when your management solution doesn't work. If it fails, that's the alternative, and I think that's still very much on the table for
Craig.
I think it's a possibility, but it's a much less likely possibility now because you do have the full faith and credit of the state now behind the city of Detroit. And they haven't suggested there's going to be a cash bailout, but at least Detroit is going to have access to easier lines of capital with the state behind them than they did before.
Yeah, but they can't borrow any more money, Craig. They're tapped out.
But they can get better rates on the money that they've already borrowed, which is going to save them some money.
And that's where the state can help. But they've got a $7 billion general fund debt. You could devote 42% of the general fund budget for 42 years and not pay this thing off. And nothing about this agreement deals with that long-term problem. I asked the governor about it yesterday, and he said, well, they've got to grow their way out of it. Well, that's not
growth
as easy
is a long-term
said.
solution for Detroit, and that's not going to fix it in the short term.
I want to shift gears a little bit and talk a little bit about leadership. Over the past couple of weeks, Mayor Bing obviously has been hospitalized. He's back in the hospital right now, and we wish him well. We hope he's on his way to a speedy recovery because he's got blood clots now in both of his lungs. Kirk Lewis has been the front and center, has been the face of really speaking for the mayor. Who is he? Can we expect to see more of him as the mayor recovers? And what do you tell Detroiters about, when our mayor is coming back, and what we can expect from the leadership down at City Hall right now? Well,
I mean, Kirk has been with the mayor most of his professional life. I mean, he was a ball boy for the Pistons when Dave Bing was the point guard. He worked with him at Bing Steel. It's one of his most trusted aides. My concern about Kirk is he's never run anything before, and that's a chronic issue we have in Detroit, that people get their hands on the wheels and they've never driven anything before, and they send us off the cliff.
But he's somewhat limited as to what he can do in this role right now under the city charter. I mean, he doesn't have the ability to appoint anybody under the city charter as a stand-in for the mayor right now. So I'm not sure how much he can really do, both positively or negatively at this point in time.
The mayor
is involved at this point in time. That's the point that Kirk Lewis has been trying to make, is that the mayor's making all the decisions. I'm just standing in for him at these events. And also with this new project manager and CFO coming in, I'm not sure that we have to worry about Kirk Lewis's role anyway. Well,
and listening to Ken Cockrell Jr. talking, there is still a lot of, it sounds like anger, and I didn't really get from the conversation that we had with him that he's ready and willing and able to come together with the mayor and the mayor's people and start working. He kind of said, "Hey, it's gonna have to be the mayor's lead."
More of this responsibility belongs in the mayor's office than it does on council. Council for the last 2 years has presented a more austere budget than the mayor has, which has never happened before in my memory in Detroit. It usually is the other way around. And so I think Ken is right to be a little miffed that Dave Bing got elected saying he was going to solve these problems. He didn't do it. And so now we're in a situation where they're giving up power to the state to help us out of this hole.
And that relationship has been one of the big frustrations in the city. Both the mayor and the council were elected as reform on the reform ballot. And from day one, they haven't worked together. And in recent weeks, the sniping between the two, Dave Bing was in our office saying, oh, that council, none of them could get a job outside government. They take that personally, as they should. And, that is a horrible relationship. And I don't know that this process has helped it any.
Well, and when this council came on board, too, we talked about 5 reform-minded members that were going to be there and a new mayor. And there was a lot of hope. I think we all sort of probably wrote things suggesting that there was a real opportunity to make a difference, but then the usual political divisions surfaced. Political loyalties, of course, are tested in situations like this, and it just shows how intractable some of these problems are.
Well, I am a big proponent, though, of patience with council. I mean, you think of where we were 4 years ago with this council. They were sitting at the table singing "Onward, Christian Soldiers" and crazy stuff like that. That's gone. This majority,
not entirely gone. Kenyatta was talking to the ancestors.
But this new, right. But this new majority is very reform-minded. They're very serious. They've been learning a lot.
Good leaders?
I think they are good potential leaders, but I keep telling people they're new. They've only been in these jobs 24 months or something. They need time to grow into those leadership roles, and of course the city doesn't have a lot of time because they're running out of money. But I think we gotta. I don't think we can write this council off yet as a lost cause.
You know, Craig, as we wrap up in the last few seconds here, I'm going to give you the last word. What do you want to see in the next month? What do you hope to see? What do you think we're going to see?
Well, what I would like to see is a competent team put together for this new 9-member board. And as somebody who was raised by a consultant, a healthcare consultant, used to go into other cities to fix their problems, we need people with no political loyalties in this town to come in and make decisions. That's going to be really critically important to see who they bring in, who they're willing to put on this board, because that'll tell us a lot about how much progress they're going to make.
Is that going to be hard to find, gentlemen?
No, I mean, they will find the right people. I mean, the governor will present a good list of names. Whether that person can, it's going to take extraordinary skills to make this arrangement work.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, the problem the mayor always had was that he couldn't attract the talent because they didn't think they would have enough power to get things done. That's changed a little with this. Maybe the governor has better luck.
Craig Fahle, thanks so much for joining us here at the Big Table. We appreciate it. You can listen to Craig Fahle Monday through Friday on WDET 101.9. Thanks, Craig.
Thank you.
We'll see you soon.